Continue that conversation on transformation of cricket, and we have roped a familiar face through Skype. We have former cricketer and national selector Hussein Manack. Good evening, Hussein, and welcome to Sports on Full View.
Good evening, Soli. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Now, cricket is a sport that is fighting itself at the moment. Please share your opinions on Lungi Ngidi being harshly criticised by Bueta Dipanar and Pat Simcox on his call for the Proteas to join the Black Lives Matter movement, something which England and the West Indies have already done.
Yeah, I think firstly, let me say that, it takes a lot of courage for a young cricketer like Lungi Ngidi to stand up and make a comment like that and really back a cause like this, which has taken off globally. And of course, it's a cause that, in South Africa particularly, as we've seen in the United States now after the George Floyd incident, that it's a much needed cause because of the awareness that needs to be created around these type of issues. And the one thing that stood out, and for example, when you look at what happened and that triggered this entire incident off was the George Floyd incident with the knee on the neck, and how that just got everybody in tears and got people questioning what is it about society that allows one human being to do this to another human being. And you look at the double standards. So for me, when I watched that moment, it was about, had that been a white person, would he been treated differently? Would he been treated the same? And clearly, there's no doubt that because George Floyd was black, he was treated a particular way. Now you bring that to South Africa, and we see a similar theme play out in cricket, in sport, in life, in society in general. And so for Lungi Ngidi to stand up and speak about it so confidently, I think takes a lot of courage. It's not easy for a young sportsman, particularly, to make a stand. We don't see many sportsmen, talk out and speak out for causes, whatever they may be, especially while they're still playing. I think when sportsmen retire and they become ex-cricketers, it's a lot easier. But while they're playing, it's not easy because it tends to put a lot of pressure on you as a young cricketer.
Absolutely. Now, we do know that there is a statement that has been signed by 30 former Proteas, which includes 5 coaches, but all of them of colour, who have come in support of Lungi Ngidi and the BLM movement. Would you say that this is enough? And what results are you hoping to see from the stance that they've taken?
Yeah, I think it's good to see that, and I read that statement today from a lot of the players. There's about 30 of them, including a few coaches. And I think you'll get a lot more coming out as well. It's particularly important, as I said, in the South African context, the lack of transformation or the need for additional transformation and equity and equality in our system. It's critical that players in our system and everybody involved takes a stand on these type of issues. So I'm glad that the players have come out. I see and I have noticed that it's only black players that have either been approached or put their names to it. And I would hope that all players sign up to the Black Lives Matter cause and make a stand. But one thing I think is also important at the same time to mention is that it's one thing to put your name to something like Cricket South Africa have, and some of the unions have, where they've actually said, we're going to support the hashtag Black Lives Matter cause, and we're going to perhaps send out a press release, whatever the case is. But I think, there is a difference between putting your name to something, talking about it, and actually implementing what you say you're going to do and what the Black Lives Matter stands for, what transformation stands for. So I think going forward, what we must look out for is we don't want to see lip service. We want to see genuine change. We want to see change in the system in South African cricket. There's a desperate need for change. There's a desperate need for young black cricketers who we've seen come out in the last few days. I mean, just today, there was a terrific article that spoke about a young cricketer, not young anymore, but who was playing at the Titans, and the challenges that he had. And, those are the challenges that so many black cricketers around the country are having. The challenges where they feel they've been treated differently, the amounts on their contracts are not the same as their fellow white players, And there's so many things that are happening in South African cricket. The system, Ashwell Prince says, is broken and needs to be fixed. So I think South African cricket, or in South African cricket, there is a need for a lot of introspection at the moment.
Absolutely. And just to talk about transformation, which you have now highlighted, in just the last 6 months, 8 new positions at the CSA have all been appointed to white males, and then also we see this delay tactic that has been posed with the return of the report about Thabang More. Would you say that this speaks to the policy of transformation at Cricket South Africa?
The point I made earlier, coming back to the Black Lives Matter, if Cricket South Africa want to put their names to a cause like Black Lives Matter, and if you're going to commit to transformation, then you need to be genuine and you need to be sincere about it. So the question at the moment is that if you're genuine about transformation, then there have been a few appointments that have taken place lately, and one of them being the head coach. There's, of course, the director of cricket. Then there was the bowling coach, batting coach, assistant coach, all those coaching positions. And a lot of them have come under scrutiny. So there are a lot of questions around those positions and the way, the processes in those particular appointments. When you talk about appointing senior position like a head coach, you would expect that an advertisement goes out, that there's an interview panel, people are given the opportunity to apply, but that didn't happen in Mark Boucher's case. He was appointed by a good friend of his, as everybody knows, a fellow player in his days, Graham Smith, who was part of the appointment or had a big role to play in the appointment. And he was appointed within a few days. There was apparently no interview, which we're still waiting to find out. And the reason given by Cricket South Africa, acting CEO Jacques Paul, was that they didn't have a lot of time. England series was a few days away and they needed to make the appointment. But then why appoint him for 4 years? So some things don't make sense. They don't add up. And a lot of people are now asking the question that, is this becoming a little bit of a job for bells? Is it one friend appointing another without due process? And the question, coming back to the double standards around what happened to George Floyd, where an officer had a knee on his neck, and had that been a white person, would it be the same? So I come back to the same double standards in South Africa. A lot of fingers are pointing at the Cricket South Africa board, the ex-CEO Thabang More, and the president, Chris Nzani, and rightly so. People need to be accountable if you are in a position, a paid position, you need to be accountable to the public. There's no two ways about it. Rightly so. But if they are going to be questioned and they are going to be held up to scrutiny when it comes to things like corporate governance and processes, then how come Grant Smith gets into a position within a few days, he appoints one of his close friends? If it was a black person, people are now asking, would that be called nepotism or not, because one friend appointing another? So, these are the questions that are coming out at the moment, and it doesn't bode well, because the addition, a rider to that, is there are some question marks around Mark Boucher's relationship with some black players at the Titans, which is the province he has coached at the last few years. And he's been very successful there as a cricketer. But does success alone mean that you are going to be a successful national coach? Because to be a successful national coach, you need to bring people together. If there are question marks, had there been an interview panel, those questions could have been asked. He could have been interrogated about the reasons why certain black cricketers have left the Titans, for example, over the last year or two while he was there.
Rightly so. This is a time for reflection, for introspection. Now let's take a look at your journey, because you played in the times of segregation. Do we still have Hussein there? Just to ask him about his playing times during the times of segregation and what it is that we can actually learn from that time so that we don't repeat the mistakes and we have a look at what we can actually build up on. Hussein, are you still there? Did you catch my question?
Okay, I got cut off just for a second there, but if you could just repeat that question, please.
So just in terms of looking at your journey and you playing during the times of segregation, what is it that we can learn from those experiences, so that we do not repeat the same mistakes?
I think one thing that stands out for me over my entire journey, and in 1991, prior to that, I was playing in what was then called SABC cricket, and then Unity took place in 91. I was asked to go on South Africa's first international tour post-isolation to India. I was called at the last minute, and for me, there's a few things that stand out. And one of the things is that over the last 25 to 30 years, administrators, particularly white administrators, has been very smart and clever about how they have window-dressed transformation. So I think that's a red herring. It's something we, as the public, as people involved in cricket, people who love cricket, we need to look out for that. Administrators don't pull the wool over our eyes with numbers and scorecards and spreadsheets and come and say, okay, we're ticking this box and that box. Transformation is not about numbers. Transformation comes from the heart. It starts from the heart. It's genuine. It's caring for individuals. If you hear some of the players I've spoken to over the last 2 days, Etienne Balati spoke today, on Metro FM and Radio 2000. He was talking to Robert Marawa. When you listen to him, it brings tears to your eyes. And for me, it's a sad indictment on the entire leadership of Cricket South Africa, in that how did we allow ourselves, or how can we allow ourselves to have these exact same discussions that we were having in 1991, where we were questioning whether, why are black cricketers being treated differently to white cricketers. And today, almost 30 years post-1991 and 25 years or 26 years after our first general election in South Africa in 94, we're having the same discussion. So where have we moved? I'm not saying for a minute that we didn't have any progress. Yes, I think a lot has happened. Black cricketers do get a lot more opportunities than they did when we played. But to answer your question, I think one of the things we need to look out for is window dressing, where administrators are very clever about how they go about taking black individuals and putting them in positions where they can use them as puppets or Uncle Toms or whatever you call it. And so we may look at the Cricket South Africa board, or we may look at the Cricket South Africa setup and go like, oh, it looks transformed. There's so many blacks around. But some of them may well have been taken by white administrators, handpicked, put there because they know those are the individuals who are not going to speak up. Those are the individuals who are not going to talk and challenge them on these critical issues. Robin Barawa asked Etienne Balati an important question early on, and I was listening to the interview. You asked him, you were at Northern Cricket Union all the years. Were there not a few black administrators that you could have gone to and spoken to and raised your concerns, and would they not have then supported you?
Hussein, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we could really go on and on with this conversation, joined via Skype there by former cricketer and national selector Hussein Manack, talking about Lungi Ngidi and his stance on the Black Lives Matter movement.